On today's show, life needs frosting, but does your coffee? Welcome back to That's Rank, your home for food news and reviews. My name's Chris, and today we're going to continue on our search for the greatest coffee creamer on the planet. At last check, it was still Coffee Crisp, but there's always room to improve. And then stick around, because I'll be talking about a time I almost got into a fight, yes, an actual fight, with a referee at a professional wrestling show. But first, Cinnabon Creamer from International Delight. An apt choice because today is National Sticky Bun Day! Now this coffee creamer isn't new. I don't know for sure when it first hit shelves. My 13 seconds of research wasn't able to narrow that down, but I'm almost certain that I've been seeing it in US dairy fridges for at least a decade. Now, cinnamon buns, as we know them today, are believed to have originated in Sweden in the 17th century after Roman spice traders had brought cinnamon back from Sri Lanka, where it's natively grown. However, it wasn't until 1985 that Cinnabon opened their first location in Seattle and their take on the classic cinnamon bun, focusing on piles of butter and sugar, and quickly found it to be a hit with consumers. And then the franchise has grown to hundreds of stores worldwide ever since. And crazy but true, Cinnabon was the first franchise to open in Libya following the fall of Gaddafi. Now, of course, their popularity does come with a hefty price tag for your waistline, coming in at a whopping 890 calories for a single cinnamon bun. You know, to burn that off, you'd have to play Ultimate Frisbee for an entire hour. But only if you never stopped running. I know that some of y'all were thinking, Frisbee to a flatter tummy. Sorry, it's going to take a lot more than just flinging a disc. Now, I'd say with this, a major opportunity is at hand. While coffee creamer is definitely not healthy, it pales in comparison to a cinnamon roll. So if you can get that Cinnabon flavor at like 1/10 of the calorie count, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. And once again, our generic coffee is coming to us from our friends at Krispy Kreme. Has your coffee ever gone bad and turned to a life of petty street crime? That's the taste of Krispy Kreme. Yes! Boom! Well, it smells great. I do get the cinnamon and the warm frosting scent in there, so it's passing the smell test so far. Slapnuts, that was for you. You always complain I use too much coffee creamer, a lot less this week. Oh no. No. Cinnabon. Where did this go wrong? You know what the problem is? Interesting timing. My friends over at Fine Dining actually touched on this problem this week when they tasted a cinnamon bun Snickers. It's the artificial cinnamon that's coming out of this. I can now taste what they were talking about. Artificial cinnamon has this really weird chemical flavor to it, and it's not good. Like, I don't like this at all. I don't know for sure why they didn't use real cinnamon in there. I mean, there's got to be a reason. Maybe it just doesn't keep shelf stable before the cream goes bad, or maybe it just doesn't mix very well together. No way that I'd ultimately wind up buying this again, though. And I'm sorry to those of you that are a fan of this. I'm gonna have to rate this all the way down at a 34 out of 100, making this the lowest ranked creamer I've had by a large margin. I just checked some reviews to see if there was any I could pull up, and I'm mostly in the minority. This is a super popular creamer. Take, for example, Hibix A, who gives this 5 stars and says, literally my favorite creamer in the world. It goes from bitter to delicious and cinnamon roll flavor. I don't use any creamer besides this one. It tastes like artificial cinnamon rolls, but I've always preferred it that way. So that's interesting. They did touch on the fact that it tastes like an artificial cinnamon roll. I don't know why anybody would want that, but apparently the masses do. Tiffany M, who's a level 2 foodie, also gives it 5 stars and shares, I don't drink coffee, but I really like to use this mixed with a little bit of milk and egg for French toast. Gives the French toast that cinnamon bun flavor. It's also good in a white hot chocolate. Well, there you go. I know Siobhan, who watches these episodes religiously, keeps saying she thinks that these creamers would go really well inside of a hot chocolate, and it seems like Tiffany agrees. I don't know what to tell you guys. I really wanted to like this one. On surface, it sounds like it's got all the right moves, but it's moving less like Jagger and more like a hyperactive seal with a GoPro on its head. Well, that's a disappointment. All right, let's talk some professional wrestling. I don't remember for sure when this occurred. I want to say 2007 or 2008. There was a small-time wrestling promotion that actually had some big names in it at the time called TNA. They're still around under the name Impact Wrestling, but they've lost much of the momentum that they had at that point. Anyway, they were holding a show up here at Canada at the Goethe Arena over in Gatineau. So me and my buddy decided to get some front row seats. Not hard to get. There was maybe 200 people in attendance that night. And sit down and watch some wrestling. That night, the beers were going down quite easily. Before the show had even started, I don't know how many we were in, but I was definitely having a good time. I was quite loosened up. Jeremy Borash, who was the ring announcer, was sitting, maybe 5 feet to my left, and I was already screaming insults at him the entire time. Hey, like a pro, Jeremy, I gotta give him credit. He completely ignored me, just no matter how much I hurled at him. And it wasn't a televised event. He absolutely could have turned around and told me off, but no, he kept it together. Anyway, the show starts. The wrestlers are really cool. They're going around the front row, slapping hands with fans in the front row before every single match starts. It was a really personalized experience. It gave me a chance to... The thing about wrestling is you're allowed to really get into it, and it's the one venue where you're allowed just to hurl insult after insult that you want at the bad guys, and it's expected because it's all part of the spectacle. I decided not to focus so much on the bad guys. I had my venom completely turned towards referee Earl Hebner. Now, Earl Hebner, not loved in Canada at all. Earl was a referee who was involved in what is known as the Montreal Screwjob. So for non-wrestling fans, Bret Hart is one of the biggest names in Canadian wrestling history. And when he was leaving the company, Earl Hebner was part of a giant ruse to get the title off him. And this was not part of the storyline. Like, this was real life stuff to have him screwed over in Montreal because Bret didn't want to drop the belt in Canada. He was fine anywhere else, just Canada was off limits for him because he's a Canadian hero. And he took that very personally, and as a result, Canada takes that very personally. So I went through all the usual stuff, just screaming, "You screwed Bret" at Earl all night long. A lot of the fans were getting into that as well. I did maybe take it up a notch. I was telling him to get the hell out of the country. Nobody wanted to see him. Well, Earl heard me, and Earl, I guess, has heard one too many "you screwed Bret" chants over the course of his life, because as soon as the match was over, he beelined right for me. Now, what's funny about this is, look, I'm no tough guy at all, but I wasn't afraid of him. Earl's a small old man. I don't know for sure how old he was at that point. I would say at least mid-50s, possibly into his 60s. There's nothing intimidating about this guy at all. Anyway, he gets right up in my face and he calls me an SOB. And I figure, all right, he's playing into the show, so I'm going to start hurling it right back at him. I don't remember for sure what I said. I know my buddy was feeding me lines in my ear at the same time. Whatever he was telling me was coming right out my mouth, and he's dying as I'm just giving it to this guy. And Earl's big comeback is, "Your mother, your mother, your mother." I don't know why that was the only thing that he could come up with. I guess lacked the intelligence to come up with anything better than "your mother." Anyway, I didn't care. I'm playing into it because I still think it's part of the show. And I ask him, "You ready to throw down, old man? Because I'm ready to go." And he says yes. At this point, I'm expecting like a couple of 300-pound muscular wrestlers to come rushing in and just beat the tar out of me. Like, I'm suddenly nervous about this, but nobody's coming out. Anyway, whoever the wrestler was in the ring at the time sort of tells Earl it's time to go to the back, so Earl comes to the back. But he's back out there 2 matches later, and I just decide now I'm going to really give it to him. I still can't remember for sure what I was putting out there. I know it was a lot of, "You're a disgrace to the business, absolutely quit and save what's left of your crappy reputation." But now, midway through the match, he decides to get in my face. He's ignoring what's going on in the ring, and now he's really ready to throw down. Anyway, again, cooler heads prevailed. He goes back to referee the match. He comes out for a third time. We go through the dance a third time. And as he's leaving for the night, because he had refereed the main event, I just scream, "Get the F out of Canada and don't ever come back!" And at this point, he just makes a beeline for me, gets right up in my face. He's crazy and wild-eyed and is just screaming, "Your mother! Your mother! Your mother!" There was more coherent sounds coming out of me, and I was probably a dozen beers into my night. The post-main event festivities was getting a picture and an autograph with Kurt Angle, who is one of the biggest stars in the entire world and definitely was at that time. I guess lead of security was a wrestler, a little known guy named Simon Diamond, so he gets Earl the heck out of there before anything happens. And I pay my 20 bucks, go up, get a picture with Kurt Angle, and call it a night. So I moved out of my parents' place and out on my own when I was 17 years old. And in 22 years on my own, that is the absolute closest I've ever come to getting into a fight as an adult. So I'd say, if the worst thing that's ever sort of crossed me is a mid-50s-year-old professional wrestling referee, I've done okay about staying out of trouble, all told. So yeah, there you have it. What do you think? Share your thoughts down below, and of course, please do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it helps me out. And if you're looking for more content, you can catch me weekday mornings on The Milkman Show on blasttheradio.com. I will, of course, be back tomorrow, and in the meantime, ciao for now.